Hey everybody, my name is Spencer, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to play Primeval Peril, published by Red Raven Games, who has partnered with us at Game Nerdz to bring you this tutorial. Primeval Peril takes place in the Sleeping Gods universe, and is a lighter, completely standalone cooperative experience that can take place in just a couple of hours. A rules variant allows for up to 4 players, but because the core rules are designed for 1 to 2, that's the version I'll be covering here. Since the game depends heavily on a story element, I can't show you everything I usually would in order to avoid spoiling elements for you. However, I will show you everything needed in order to explain the core concepts, which does require me to reveal a few minor details that I personally don't consider to be in spoiler territory. In Primeval Peril, you and up to 1 other player find yourselves aboard a boat called the Harpy in the San Francisco Bay. After a sudden change in your surroundings, you're transported to a perilous river deep in the jungle located in a mysterious place called the Wandering World. To win the game, you'll have to keep the passengers alive, navigate the dangerous rivers, and rescue a kidnapped passenger, all while searching for a way home. I'll get into the specifics of playing in just a bit, but first let's take a look at the setup. Place the spiral-bound atlas on the table and open it to page 2. Place the boat token in a plastic stand and put it on the word Start. Place the action board to the right of the atlas. Put the pocket watch token in a plastic stand and place it on the Turn Start space. Grab the Captain Vine character board and place it level 1 side face up just underneath the atlas or in a location that can be easily reached by all players. If you're playing solo, take all 4 of the remaining character boards and place them level 1 side face up in front of you. Otherwise, evenly divide the character boards between the players however you'd like. Note that Captain Vine is the leader and is not controlled by a single player. Rather, he is controlled by whoever is the active player on any given turn. Place the damage token on the highest space of each character's health track and place 3 stamina tokens on each character board. Character boards also show inventory slots, abilities, and skills. Shuffle the 36 event cards into a deck and place it face down next to the action board. Look for the starting combat cards. Now these have the word combat on the backs and have no number in the top left corner. Shuffle these cards into a deck and place it face down on the action board. Place a damage token on the highest number of the boat's health track located on the action board. Take the deck of numbered cards and without looking at the cards or changing their order, place it near the atlas. Separate the resources into piles and take 1 of each, which you'll then distribute among the characters however you'd like. Just know that you are limited by the number of inventory slots, each of which holds a single resource. Make a supply of tokens including damage, power, reroll, and status tokens. Place the combat and fate die nearby, and place the bonus time token near the action board. Take a new journey log sheet, record the players' names, and indicate whether you will be playing easy, normal, or hard mode. There are no adjustments to the core rules for normal mode, so I'll be teaching that difficulty. Towards the end of the video, I'll explain the adjustments you'll make for the other 2 difficulties. Finally, choose a starting player, give them the active player token, and you're ready to begin your journey. Well, you're almost ready. Technically, the final step before playing is to read the introductory story on page 23 of the rulebook. Note that the rules and the story are combined in one book. The story eases you into the game, and after being introduced to the characters and the inciting event of the plot, you're instructed to gain cards 2, 3, and 55, which are the fishing pole, useful gear, and save Shen quest cards, respectively. At this point, the active player takes the first turn of the game. Now, before I go over what that looks like, let's take a look at the cards we just received. These first 2 cards are examples of adventure cards, which represent the equipment and knowledge you'll find on your journey. Adventure cards can be identified by the large skill symbol and ability at the bottom of each one. Now, adventure cards may only be used once they are equipped to a character. This small text beneath the card's title is its type, and it will either be hand, 2 hands, body, advancement, or miscellaneous. Each character can only have 1 of each type equipped at any given time, except for hand, in which case they can have up to 2, unless the card is a 2-handed item. In this game, all characters have only 2 hands. Whenever you gain an adventure card, equip it to a character by tucking it underneath their board so that the bottom information is visible. If you cannot equip an adventure card to any character, place it off to the side of the board without any effect. Now, players can swap equipped adventure cards between characters, but only between actions. Advancements are a different story. Once an advancement has been placed on a character, it cannot go to another character. Once equipped, adventure card abilities may be used on any character at any time unless the text specifies this character or self, meaning that effects may only be applied to the character who has that card. Ultimately, it's up to the controller of each character to decide when and how to use their equipped abilities. Throughout your adventure, characters are constantly losing and gaining health and stamina. When a character loses or gains health, move the damage token up and down the track accordingly, though you can never gain more than the printed maximum. Sometimes the game tells you to take damage. This is the same as losing health, and is sometimes written as minus X health. Your boat, the Harpy, also has a health track, so when you take boat damage, you reduce the Harpy's health. If you ever reach 0 on this track, cross off a moon symbol on the journey log and return the boat to 1 health. You can also restore health by repairing, which we'll get to in a bit. Lastly, each character has a maximum of 3 stamina, which can be spent to participate in challenges and activate abilities. To spend stamina, remove a stamina token from the character's board. In addition to adventure cards, you'll also find abilities on character boards. Some abilities require taking damage and spending stamina and resources to activate. This is represented by the cost, followed by an arrow before the ability. In this example, I'll pay 1 stamina to re-roll the combat die 1 time. To spend a resource, return the resource from the character's inventory to the supply. Now, resources are usually gained from event cards and story outcomes. When gained, the active player decides how to divvy them up unless instructed otherwise. Resources are stored in inventory slots on the character and action boards. If there are no open slots when resources are gained, you must discard resources until you have enough slots. Now, you may swap resources between characters and the action board at any time except during explore actions. During explore actions, you may only swap resources between characters, and you may not swap resources at all during combat. Once the cost is paid, you'll activate the ability. Now, I'm not going to cover all of these icons, just refer to the index on the back cover of the book if you need clarification. The third card we received, Save Shen, is a quest card. When you gain a quest card, read the text and place it face up next to the action board. Pay special attention to any quest cards that contain keywords, which can affect the stories you read when exploring. This particular quest card establishes your objective for the entire game, which is to save Shen and return to San Francisco. Also notice the italicized instructions at the bottom, which explain, at the start of the second turn, read story section A and place this card in the game box. Well, we're not going to do that yet because we haven't taken the first turn. So let's break down what a turn looks like so that we can move on in the story. Every turn has 3 steps to it, and we'll begin with the first step. Event. Draw the top event card and read the effect. Events may present a choice, challenge, consequence, or other effect. You may never ignore an event card, and you must resolve it immediately. Now, usually event cards will have negative or positive effects. The active player decides how to distribute the event's effects among the characters unless the card specifies otherwise. If an event card presents a challenge, you must attempt it. Even if you fail the challenge, you still gain the reward unless the card specifies otherwise. Speaking of challenges, let's take a look at how those work. In Primeval Peril, challenges are tests of skill that the characters must overcome using one of 5 skills: strength, cunning, savvy, perception, or craft. This is an example of a challenge, and you'll find them either on event cards, on the atlas, or in the storybook. With Grasping Vines, you must achieve a total of 6 strength or higher. If you fail, you take the failure consequence printed in italics. In this case, 2 boat damage. Now, to attempt a challenge, begin by deciding which of the characters you control will participate. You may also invite other players to have their characters participate, but they are free to decline. You're looking for characters that have at least 1 instance of the required skill present on their character boards and or their equipped cards. Each participating character must spend 1 stamina, and if they have none to spend, they can't participate. It's important to note that you can choose to have no characters participate and move on to the next step. Sometimes it's better to take the fail effect of a challenge rather than spend stamina. Whatever the case, add up the total of required skill from the participating characters, which again is their basic skill plus any relevant equipped cards, and move on to the next challenge step. The second step is to roll the green fate die and add that to your skill total. Feel free to spend a one-time use reroll token if you get a bad result. Those can be used on any player's turn to impact any character. Now is your chance to activate any character or adventure card abilities to alter the outcome of the roll. Also, any player may discard resources from their characters to give +1 skill of the type specified on the resource. Resources have alternative uses, which are explained on page 14 of the rulebook. Once everyone's decided they have nothing else to contribute, compare the final skill number to the challenge number, and if it is equal to or greater than the challenge number, you succeed. Ignore any listed fail effects, read the next line, and follow the instructions. Otherwise, you fail and must take the consequences. If this includes damage, assign it first to the characters that participated, if able, splitting it according to the preference of the active player. Usually, even if you fail, you gain the rewards and move on in the story. Event cards and story entries will sometimes direct you to gain statuses. There are 4 types of statuses: frightened, madness, venom, and weakened. When a character gains a status, place the token on their board. Each character can have multiple status tokens, but never more than 1 copy of each status. Unless specified, the active player chooses which character takes a status token when instructed. A frightened character may not use combat cards. Characters with venom take 1 damage at the beginning of each player's turn. If a character with venom reaches 0 health, ignore the token until they have health to lose again. A character with madness cannot use any of their character board abilities, and all abilities on their equipped cards have no effect. However, the skill symbols still apply. Finally, weakened characters should subtract 2 from each of their skills. Once you resolve the event card, discard it. If the deck is ever exhausted, just reshuffle the discard pile. After you resolve the event, continue to step 2, performing actions. The active player now chooses what happens next in the adventure. You may choose from 4 actions, and you may choose the same action more than once. To perform an action, spend the time required, which will be 1 or 2, except for resting. To spend time, move the pocket watch, beginning at the turn start section of the action board, down the time track to the right for each time spent. If you spend at least 4 time and decide you don't want to do anything else with the remainder, you may choose to pass your turn and save the extra time for the next turn. Use the bonus time token as a reminder that the next turn has 1 extra time. All actions and their time costs are printed on the action board for reference, and we'll cover them in that order. To travel, move the boat on the atlas across a dotted line into an adjacent river section. You may move in any direction, and each line you cross costs 1 time. When you enter a space with a rocks obstacle, roll the fate die to see if you take damage. If the roll result matches the value printed by the rocks, you must take the specified boat damage. You may use reroll tokens here. If you reach the edge of the map and want to keep going in the same direction, you may do that as long as there is the word "to" followed by a page number. To do this, remove the boat from the atlas, turn to the page specified on the edge you are crossing, and place the boat on the adjacent space on the new edge. Always enter the map on the opposite side of where you left. So, for example, if you cross the northern edge, you'll enter on the southern edge. Don't forget that you have a map of the river on your journey log. Each square of the map has a number that corresponds to a page in the atlas where that section of the river is located. Feel free to refer to the map at any time. The bulk of the action in Primeval Peril happens when you take an explore action. If the boat is on a space with an icon in a square or a number in a circle, you may spend 2 time to explore that location. If it's a square location, look for the matching icon on a piece of parchment located on the edge of the same page. When you complete the instructions for the corresponding location, that action is over. These locations usually involve paying resources or completing challenges to achieve a result, so follow that process as you would any other challenge. A couple of the square locations present opportunities to purchase items. When visiting a trader, you may look at each market card before deciding which to purchase. Place any unpurchased cards back in the deck in order. If it's a numbered location, open the storybook to the number listed on the atlas. Read the first section of text in the story aloud. At the end of each story section, you will either be instructed to return to the map, which ends that explore action, or you will be given a choice that may lead to further story sections. Choices may also include a challenge or combat. After completing the challenge or combat, turn to the story listed in parentheses and gain any listed rewards. Pay close attention to how each story is divided up, because the challenge outcomes may impact where you turn next in the storybook. If you fail a challenge, the negative effects printed in italics may instruct you to turn to an alternate story number. If there is no alternate story number listed, continue to the story listed in the parentheses below the failure description. A couple of other details about the explore action. Don't read ahead until you've made your choice. You don't want to get an unfair advantage. Sometimes the storybook tells you to cross off a location on your campaign map. Crossed off locations can no longer be explored in the current campaign. And finally, the storybook may instruct you to gain specific cards. If the text says gain card X, where X is a specific number, look through the deck of numbered cards, retrieve the appropriate quest card, and place it face up nearby. If you are ever instructed to lose a card or to complete a quest, return the specified card to the deck in numbered order. Some story sections list keywords that you must have in order to read them or to make certain choices. Review all quest cards in play to see which keywords you have. If a story paragraph begins with, if keyword X, turn to X, then you must follow those instructions if you have the keyword. If a choice says requires keyword X, that means you must have a specific keyword to choose that option. However, you are not forced to choose it if you do have the specified keyword. You may rest anywhere at any time as long as you're not in the middle of another action. Rather than spending time to rest, you must cross off one of the moon symbols on your journey log, starting with the leftmost symbol. When you rest, each character regains their stamina tokens to a max of 3 and restores 2 health. You may remove 1 status effect from 1 character. And finally, for each set of 1 meat and 1 fruit you choose to return to the supply, you may restore an additional 5 health divided between any characters. Crossing off the 6th moon symbol begins the countdown to the end of the game. At that point, set aside the top 3 cards of the event deck to make a new deck. You now have 3 turns to reach a game ending in the story. If you have not reached an ending at the end of the 3rd turn, you lose the game. You are also defeated when all 5 characters reach 0 health. The 4th and final action is to repair the boat, which costs 2 time. Perform a craft challenge in the way I explained earlier, and restore boat health based on the result. 1 to 5 gives you 1 health, 6 to 7 restores 2 health, and 8 or more restores 3 health. After you complete an action, if the pocket watch is on the last space of the time track, your turn is over. Return the pocket watch to the turn start space on the track and pass the active player token to the player on the left. They now begin their turn and take control of Captain Vine. Alright, we've covered every potential storybook element up to this point except for combat. When a story includes the word combat, followed by a number, you must start combat and defeat enemies before you may continue the story. Here's how to begin. The enemies for any location are always on the opposite page of the open atlas. Each enemy has a name, counterattack damage, and a 3x3 grid containing health, power growth, and end of round abilities. Each enemy begins combat with power tokens, the blue triangles, equal to the add power symbols on their grid. Total these symbols and place that many tokens on the picture area of the enemy. Do this for all 3 enemies on the page. Next, you have a final chance to customize your combat deck before combat begins. Combat cards are only used in combat, and while you begin the game with 12 of them, you will find many more as you play. At any time outside of combat, including immediately before, you may look through combat cards you own and choose which ones to include in your active deck. The deck must contain at least 12 cards, but there is no maximum size. Keep any unused combat cards you own near the action board, and keep the active deck on the action board. Deciding which cards to keep in the active deck is a team effort, but the active player does have final say. Once you're satisfied with the deck, give it a good shuffle during combat setup. Each player draws 1 combat card, plus 1 for each character they control. Don't count Captain Vine in this total. So, if playing with 2 players, each player draws 3 cards, while a solo player would draw 5. Begin the first round of combat and continue with subsequent rounds until either all enemies are defeated or all characters have 0 health. A combat round is made up of 3 steps. The first step is to attack and resolve counterattacks. In any order, each player plays a single combat card onto a character they control that isn't at 0 health and that has not attacked this round. Together, you'll play a total of 4 combat cards if possible, and only the active player may choose to play a combat card on Captain Vine instead of another character they control. When playing a combat card, you can activate its effects in any order. The possible effects are: deal damage. Place damage tokens on an enemy equal to the basic damage number displayed in this symbol, which is sometimes modified by the combat die. Combat die results can either add or subtract to the damage number, which means this is just one more instance when you'll want to have some reroll tokens available. You'll also see instances when certain skill totals can add to the damage number. For example, if craft is listed, as it is here, the character performing the attack adds their craft skill total to the damage. Don't forget to add skill symbols from equipped cards. Once you arrive at the total damage, you'll deal it to the enemy by placing damage tokens on its grid. In general, for each point of damage dealt, place one token per square across adjacent squares, as if it were a single slash or hit. Each square takes one damage to cover, except for hearts with a value of 2 or more. In instances where that's the case, you still only place one damage token on that square, but it counts as 2. Damage can't be placed diagonally, but you may change directions when placing damage, like in the shape of an L. The only thing that matters is that all squares are adjacent. You can also disable enemy abilities by covering them up with damage tokens, such as power growth or end of round abilities. However, the only way to defeat an enemy is to cover up all of its hearts. Upon defeat, its abilities no longer take effect, and you cannot place any more damage on it. You can use the chaos of battle against your enemies by taking advantage of splash damage. To do this, place some of the damage tokens on an adjacent enemy grid as long as the attack follows the damage adjacency rule, and as long as at least half of the damage rounded up is dealt to the original target. When you see this symbol, remove the indicated number of power tokens from the target enemy before they counterattack. This block symbol means you ignore the specified number of damage from the enemy's counterattack. An enemy will always counterattack immediately after you attack it, even if you covered its last heart. An enemy deals damage equal to its basic attack value, shown here, plus the number of wooden power tokens laying on its image. In this example, Zakmir Krok has 3 power tokens on it, so it deals 2 basic damage plus 3 from its power tokens. A total of 5 damage is dealt to the character who attacked the Krok, ignoring 1 point of damage per block depicted on the combat card and any block from adventure cards or character abilities. Any damage dealt in excess of a character's remaining health is ignored. After 4 combat cards have been played, or fewer if any characters are at 0 health, the end of round abilities of all remaining enemies activate. Players may optionally choose to move to the end of round phase even if they haven't played 4 combat cards. First, discard all played combat cards. Then, from left to right, each remaining enemy gains power, represented by this symbol, and activates end of round abilities, indicated by the hourglass symbol. An enemy gains power tokens equal to the number of uncovered power growth symbols, which are then placed on its picture area. All uncovered abilities are then applied, with the active player deciding which characters are impacted by the effects. For an explanation of each enemy ability, refer to page 19 of the rulebook. If any enemies remain after a full round of combat, each player draws 1 combat card for each one they played in the previous round. Reshuffle the deck if it runs out. Then begin a new round of combat. Once all enemies are defeated, discard all combat cards, remove damage and power tokens from the enemies, and complete your story in the storybook. Now that we've covered all of that, you can continue on and take your first turn. Remember, after the first turn, continue reading in the storybook at letter A. This story section provides critical information and instructs you to gain card 56. After turn 2, you are free to experience the story however you wish. One more critical detail about characters. Each one can be upgraded to level 2. As you play Primeval Peril, you will acquire blood flowers in various ways. And anytime you gain 5 blood flowers, choose one character to flip to their level 2 side and record who leveled up on the journey log. Be sure to place the health marker on the same space and keep the current status and stamina tokens. If you're finding Primeval Peril to be too easy or too difficult, you can adjust the difficulty level. Normal level is the difficulty I've been teaching so far. When playing on easy, enemies start with 1 fewer power token in combat, and you always have +1 to all die rolls. When playing hard mode, all challenges have +1 to their challenge number, and each enemy begins combat with 1 extra power token. You are allowed to change your difficulty level anytime, just be sure to mark the change on your journey log because it impacts your final score. When you finish a game, whether because you achieved your objectives or you were defeated, calculate your score based on the following. Gain 2 points per adventure card you have, excluding starting cards, 1 point per 4 remaining resources, 10 points if you reached an ending, minus 10 points if you were defeated, 10 points if playing normal mode, and 20 points if playing hard mode. Primeval Peril can be played over and over again, and although you may encounter elements you've previously seen, your main goal during subsequent plays is to beat your highest score, though different story choices and outcomes may lead you to new places and characters. Be sure to check out page 22 of the rulebook, which lists specific cards you'll unlock for each new playthrough. And now you're ready to play Primeval Peril. If you have any questions about anything I covered here, please leave me a comment and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If you found this video helpful, consider giving it a like, and if you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe to the Game Nerdz YouTube channel. Once again, my name is Spencer, and I want to thank you so much for watching.